welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now, here's the show. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to jump in here because I'm getting a lot of questions about my upcoming programs, the group programs that are starting January 18th, 2019. I have two programs starting. I have the 21-day Digestive Reset Cleanse, and I also have the 49-day or 7-week online Reset, Restore, Renew program. Both programs are online, and I know from the emails I'm getting that many of you are thinking about cleansing after the holidays and starting the new year out taking care of your health and well-being. So what I've done is I've put together a webinar, and the webinar is called Cleanse Your Body, Your Mind, Your Life with Ayurveda, and I go into detail on the programs and I compare the two programs so it's make it easier for you to decide. And to really sweeten the pot, I'm also offering a limited time discount on the Reset, Restore, Renew program, the longer, more in-depth program. And this is only going to be for a short period of time. I have some spaces left. I have a limited amount of spaces because I do a 90-minute private online consultation with everybody who joins either of these programs. So I have limited slots in my calendar. So once those slots are full, this limited time offer is gone. So I would really encourage you to check out the webinar and see which one is best for you. Again, I'll put the link to that webinar, the Cleanse Your Body, Your Mind, Your Life with Ayurveda, in the show notes, or you can access it on my website by going to elementshealingandwellbeing.com. Click on that orange Start Here button on the top right-hand corner, and you'll find the webinar link there. And on that page, you can register. Once you register to the program, I'll send you a link to my calendar to book your private 90-minute online consult, and then we can get going on restoring and rejuvenating your mind and body and setting you up for a great start to 2019. So check out the webinar. I hope it helps, and don't hesitate to contact me by email, info@elementshealingandwellbeing.com, or just book that free 20-minute discovery call where we can hop online and I can answer any questions you have. Don't forget the programs start January 18th. That's for the group programs. The private programs are ongoing throughout the year, but for that group discount, they start January 18th. And for that limited time discount on the Reset, Restore, Renew program, make sure you book soon. So there you go. That's all the information that you need if you want to cleanse and start your new year off taking care of your health and well-being. And now here's the show. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda. Today I'm joined by the lovely Amy Wheeler. Hi, Amy.
Good morning or good afternoon,
yes,
whichever continent you're on.
There you go. I'm evening, you're morning. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, Amy is a regular guest. We did an episode with Amy back early days, which I'll link to in the podcast show notes, where Amy tells us all about her life and her work. But today we're going to discuss collaboration versus competition, which is a topic I've wanted to discuss for a while, because I think it's a very important topic for our times and for how we're going to put this world to rights and to live a life of ease rather than of stress and competition. Right, Amy? What do you have to say on that?
I'm with you. I sat down early morning writing in my journal thinking I had nothing to say about this topic and ended up with 3 full pages. So I guess there's something to talk about.
Right. I did the same thing. I was like, right, let me get my head into this. And then I was writing away excitedly about this subject. So let's start first of all by just defining both of these. So competition is the activity or condition of striving to gain or win something by defeating or establishing superiority over others, which sounds familiar with our society today, right? Versus collaboration, which is the situation of two or more people working together to create or achieve the same outcome. Now, it's often said that competition or being competitive is our innate nature. However, I really don't agree with this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I think that survival is our innate nature, to survive in the world. And culturally, I believe that we have been led to believe that competing or dominating over others is a way to survive and succeed. So I believe that competition is just a means that we believe is going to help us survive, rather than it being our innate nature. And I don't believe that competition is the best way for us to survive. What do you think about that, Amy? Do you think that, competition is our innate nature?
I'm very interested in this, and I just want to quote an African proverb before we go further. And it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Love it.
And in my mind, competition is one strategy that we can use for survival, but so is cooperation. And as you said, as a woman, this has been my leadership style. This has been how I want to move through my life. This is how I work with my faculty in my yoga therapy school. This is how I work with my husband. It's my worldview that if we want to go far, we must go together and we must cooperate.
Absolutely. And I think collaboration and cooperation brings that trust, right? It brings openness, and it helps us take risks and to be adventurous. Whereas if we're being competitive, there's a mistrust, there's a protection of information, and there's a fear of stretching ourselves further than we would because we're afraid of making mistakes. Whereas if we're in a collaborative group and we have support, we're more likely to make more progress because we're more likely to take risks when we know we have the support of others around us.
Well, that's the key word that you just said that really jumped out at me was fear.
Yeah.
When I'm in fear that I'm not going to have enough, or someone's going to steal my stuff, or blah, 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 blah. When I'm in fear, I become competitive. I'm going to admit that to you. But then I cultivate the opposite, and I meditate and I journal and I say, Amy, what's that about? Are you living from a place of fear, or are you living from a place of love and connection? And you get to make a choice. I get to make a choice about how we're going to view the world. Is it a hostile place? Is it a scary place? Is it a fearful place? Or is it a creation that I want to contribute to that is more cooperative and kind and loving and supportive?
Right, exactly. And I'm quite competitive by nature, given that I have a lot of pitta in my constitution. So pittas tend to have that natural competitive side to them. However, I found the more I've gone on my spiritual journey, the more desire for collaboration is there. In the past, I was in competitive sporting events and so on, and enjoy the competition. Whereas now, I shun away from it. And I have no desire to enter in those competitive situations anymore. So I feel that it's part of my spiritual journey is that realization that competition is not serving me, and that desire for collaboration is really coming forward. Have you experienced that?
You just hit the nail on the head, and I'm a storyteller, so
go for it. I love it.
Since fourth grade, when I became a track and field star, I wanted to beat the boys. I wanted, I was the only girl captain of a track team, and I wanted to beat them. And that lasted all the way up through high school competitive track and field and on to college, Division I track and field. And all those years, I was so competitive and so highly pitta driven. But now at 50, almost 50 years old, looking back at those years, they were the most miserable years of my life. Right. I was anxious. I was fearful. I was miserable. I didn't have close friends. I mean, there's a cost that comes with being that highly competitive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't want to do it anymore. I'm with you. I'm like, okay, let's turn this corner and cultivate something new, because that is not a state that I want to live in.
Yeah, and I think as women that we're natural collaborators. Women tend to be natural community builders, and while men have that greater competitive drive. And I think that competition comes with trying to fit into a masculine world. Whereas I think when we lost the balance of masculine and feminine, we lost that balance of competition and collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say men and women. I think when you say masculine and feminine, that resonates more with me. And I do think that there's been a very masculine view of society for, centuries, maybe since the beginning of time. And that the new way of leadership, the new way of being in the world that's starting to emerge is a more feminine and collaborative way to be in relationship. And as president of IYT, I'm part of the new wave that is saying, I have, 12 strong, phenomenal women that are willing to collaborate with me and bring in the new age. There's probably more, but I'm just picking a number.
Yeah.
And we are going to get pushback, and people aren't going to like it, and they're going to say, "What the heck are you trying to do here? This is wrong." Right. And I'm just here to say that I'm doing it anyway. This is where we need to go.
Yeah. Well, you have that intuition that it's right and it feels right and you feel connected to it.
Right. And what I'm seeing as I get more age, more wisdom, more life experience is that until you collaborate, you are not safe. It's when you compete that you should feel fearful, because you're out there all by yourself and you can easily get knocked off the pedestal or whatever. But when you collaborate and you have strong, supportive people around you that love you and want to care for you and stand up for you because you've done the same for them, that's when you are safe. So it's very counterintuitive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think, yes, like you said, it is the future, and that, and I think that this wave of the feminine coming in, I think is going to help. And again, I think there can be healthy competition, right? But that there needs to be, like the balance of masculine and feminine, there needs to be the balance of collaboration and competition. And I think like healthy competition can exist. And I think back, I used to teach martial arts way back. And I used to teach kids, and you'd have a little bit of competition trying to get them to quieten down and like, okay, I'm going to count to 10 and I want you sitting in the dojo and being quiet. And that was a little gentle competition versus, when they're learning their skills, you give them a progression of combinations to do that you don't pit them against each other. That, each person, as we know, learns differently, and that you make sure that you're giving each child individual attention. So I think I'm saying this to show that there can be good competition where, it's fun and inclusive versus singling children out when they're trying to learn something and creating a competitive environment. And actually, the education system is a place where there can be a lot of competition, and you are particularly involved in that, Amy, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But we know that, say, for example, the US education system, it's quite competitive. It's got a lot of private schools, and it's a big business, and there's standardized testing. And it can be a place where culturally competition can be really pronounced, and then that becomes part of a child's life. What do you think about that?
Well, you're talking my language with all these sporting terms and education. I've been teaching sports psychology for 22 years. And when it comes to competition, we recognize that it is part of the world. You have to be ready to experience it and be okay with it. It is the reality right now. But what we try to differentiate is between task orientation versus ego orientation. And task orientation is basically saying, I'm trying to be the best version of myself that I can be and improve myself every single day. Versus ego orientation is, I'm only going to be happy if I'm the top dog, if I'm number one. And so how is it that we can shift our sports teams and our athletic or our education system to help every child be the best version of themselves that they can be? It's almost like you're competing against yourself, if that makes any sense, as opposed to competing against others.
Yeah, absolutely. So, bringing in more equality and more, of the individualized education. And, when we look to countries like Finland, right, who is known for their education system, and it's really known for being an excellent education system, and that they have no standardized tests, that they have no private schools, universities, that it's all public, and that everyone attends a public school, and they don't assign, or they assign very little homework, and engage the children more in creative play. And that's another way of looking at it, that the main driver of Finnish education system is the idea that every child should be given the opportunity to learn, regardless of background or income or geographic location. And the main driver is not competition, but more cooperation and equality, and rather than, like I said, the standardized testing, that it's left down to the teacher or principal of each school to consider how a child learns and how they're developing in their lane, as it were, which is what you're saying, right, on an individual basis.
Right. And it's very interesting because there's been 40 years of research, both in education and sport, on this exact topic. And what it shows is that the kids who have more task orientation, who are, we're focusing on them individually and helping them be the best version of themselves they can be, are happier, they're more productive, they don't cheat, they are better members of society, they have more satisfaction and better performance. Right. There's this myth that if you're cooperative, if you're task-oriented, that you're not going to perform well. And the research shows the opposite, that you're actually going to perform better. And ego orientation, on the other hand, where you're competing and wanting to win and beat everybody else, and that's your only measure of success, we actually have 40 years of research to show that those kids don't do that well. They have more anxiety, more depression. They have more maladaptive behaviors. They're more likely to cheat. And in the end, when they go into a bigger setting, say moving from high school to college, they get lost. They don't know who they are, and they don't perform as well in the next larger swimming pool, if you will.
Yeah, because they're going from a small ecosystem where they were top dog, right, into a bigger ecosystem where they're like, hey. And like you said, they don't have the skills then to survive because they were used to being top dog and they were glorified probably.
Right. And so you don't know this, but my doctoral dissertation was on task versus ego orientation and what kind of results we see, not only with children in sport, but also with coaches, because coaches set the tone for the team, right? Oh, sure. And so my doctoral dissertation was looking at exactly this, these concepts.
So interesting. Yeah, it is, when you see the environment in which a child learns, like I'm thinking back to those days when I was teaching like 4-year-olds, little skills in martial arts. And, I could have little Tommy who's, punching towards the air instead of straight in front of him. But I just, I told him like he was doing well and he was making progress, and he had no idea what the others were doing because I had them lined up so they're not seeing each other, but, they're focused on their own thing. But each week with a little bit of encouragement, he progressed by leaps and bounds just because he got that encouragement rather than, being put in the corner and shown, now this is what you're supposed to do. This is how it's done properly and you're not doing it right. And, beating him down almost emotionally versus encouragement and as well understanding that it's important to do it in your own time, in your own way. And I think, going back to what Ayurveda and yoga teach us is that we're all unique and we all learn in different ways and we all have different abilities. And so I think that's so important for us all to remember.
Right. And I want to take it one step further. There is encouragement. I mean, we know through psychological research that the magic number is 5 positive, encouraging statements for a child to every 1 correction. Oh. But taking it even further, it's not like, yay, you're doing a good job, Johnny. Keep doing it incorrectly.
Right.
It's something called informational feedback, where you say, Johnny, you're doing a great job. I appreciate your effort. And could we bring your hand a little bit closer in this direction?
Exactly.
So you give what we call in yoga, krama, step-by-step informational feedback, and let them be successful at every little step. And then obviously they get it. So it's not about trying to, not hurt the snowflake kind of thing. And every kid gets a participation trophy. That's not what we're saying.
Yes.
We are moving them in the direction that they need to be going, but we're doing it in a way that they can understand and is age appropriate, frankly. A lot of people want little kids to be grown-ups before their brain has even developed at age 26.
Right. So true. Yes, I totally agree that it has to be constructive and not false, achievements, and that they are going out into the world thinking they have these skills and then they don't. Right. So that can be even more harmful sometimes. Poor Johnny would get beaten up.
Johnny can't go into his first fight punching up to the sky. That's not going to work.
No, not at all. But so interesting. You're in the education system, and how do you see the future of education?
Well, everyone has so many bad things to say about millennials, and I got to tell you, you are wrong. Whoever is saying this about millennials being lazy, being not motivated, blah, blah, blah. I've been teaching 22 years, college students, and what I see is a highly conscious group of young people that gets it, that gets that cooperation is the future. Yep. We can't keep, isolating and competing with one another, that tolerance and compassion are the name of the game. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. In my philosophy classes, these kids blow my mind. And what I tell people is, you know what? The millennials don't want to play the game that the baby boomers set up because they can't win it. Right. They can't progress in the system that the baby boomers set up. So they're making their new game. They're taking everything they have and they're creating a new reality that they can be successful in. And that reality is cooperation. And that reality is let's work together and go far together.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think millennials are showing us the way forward and how collaboration works. They're joining online groups. They're sharing information. We have the rise of shared working environments, right? Shared office space and shared cars and shared apartments now with Airbnb. So it is the way forward with the millennials. And I think they have so much to offer us and a new insight, which, older generations couldn't see because we're so set in our ways. And I do think going on to now technology, that technology allows for more connection and collaboration than we ever thought possible before. And it really helps us tackle big problems in the world, I think, as well. However, I also think that technology has to be used in the right way, right? To encourage collaboration rather than isolation. And I think the answer here comes with smaller groups and smaller, more intimate settings. And I was listening recently to Seth Godin, who is like the marketing guru in the modern entrepreneurial world. And he was speaking about the importance of connection because he's all about marketing and these online platforms. And he was talking about the importance of connection, and rather than trying to serve everyone and have this massive following and have things to go viral or scale up, that we focus more on smaller communities and then subgroups within those communities. So that he was saying like the magic number 7, for instance, and that, if you're a small group of 7, you'll notice if there's only 6 of you, you're going to notice if somebody is missing. So these smaller groups will support each other more, will collaborate, people will feel included and a part of a common goal versus, in this tech world now we see that people want to, like I said, see things go viral or scale up, and how do we, get this to be massive? But I think there's something lost in that as well. I
completely agree. And I think technology is a double-edged sword because on one hand, when you base your self-worth on how many likes did I get or how many people responded or, did someone say a nasty thing about me, it is devastating and it's isolating. But technology can also be used quite differently, as you're saying, where it helps you stay in connection with those people that you really want to stay in connection with. And, from my experience as a yoga teacher, I never, ever, ever get any business from paid ads, print ads, even all the stuff I do on Facebook. I put a lot of little videos out. None of that gets me business. What gets me business is that someone I know tells somebody else that they trust me and I'm a worthwhile yoga teacher, and that's how I get business. And all that other stuff on technology is a supporting factor that when someone hears from my friend, you should take yoga with Amy, then that person checks me out on Facebook and sees my videos and says, oh, she looks trustworthy, and they come to me. But the bottom line is it's the relationship that I have with my friend and my friend has with my potential student out there that gets them to come to me. It is not the technology. It is not the videos I do. That's just supporting building the relationship.
Absolutely. It's, again, those smaller subgroups.
Right.
And intimate groups. And because if it's too big, you feel like you're just, if you're part of this following somebody, on online, and you're just part of a million or hundreds of thousands of people, then you're lost in the crowd, and there's very little opportunity to make connection there. Whereas these small, intimate subgroups, or like you said, and mouth to mouth, is the best form of advertising, and not to be concerned with trying to go viral. I think there is. I think that there's a loss there. I think there's a loss of connection when we try to go out on a massive scale. And I think that big change can happen in the world from small little collaborations and, from small subgroups starting something. So rather than a small group going, we want to create a movement, but they're just doing something in their own way, say be in the environment. Maybe they're doing something small for the environment, and other people then see and they're like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. And it's more of a vibrational outpouring, so that it's not this massive intentional movement, that is just, what would you say, grassroots level.
This is what I wrote about in my journal this morning, is that when I do my work, I'm not setting out to be competitive and to be the yoga queen of the world. And it is not that. It is when Amy tunes into Amy and gets in touch with herself, what comes out? Okay, this video came out, or this podcast came out of me. And I share that in service to others, hoping it will help them. And that's it. That is it. There's no other motive or agenda beyond that. It's just me getting in touch with me, see what comes out. And that's how I feel our podcasts are, by the way. And then if we think it's of service to anyone else, we share it, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
But that's it. Collaboration is about sharing your gifts, sharing your knowledge, or sharing your time with people. Whatever it is you have to share, sharing that. And it feels so good when we do it, right? It feels so good when you're sharing. And
there's this feeling for me of what I call Ishvara Pranidhana, or what Patanjali calls Ishvara Pranidhana, where I don't have to worry about the results. Like when I post something on social media, if it touched me, but not one person likes it, it's still good. I mean, I have that happen all the time on Instagram. Nobody follows me. Nobody likes my stuff. But you know what? It touched me, and so maybe one person will like it and feel touched by it, and that's it.
Right. Yeah, I do the same, and particularly on my pages, I share things about the environment or things that I'm like, this is a good cause. And sometimes I'm sure people are like, oh my God, here we go again. But, if it touched me, I'll put it out there and be whoever sees it, whoever, does or doesn't like it, then so be it. But I felt strong enough to put it on there. But one such cause, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, is, very much climate change, very much, we're all about Mother Nature, right? And the environment, as should, I think most people are nowadays. And, have you heard of Paul Hawken and the Project Drawdown?
No, I haven't. Tell me.
He's amazing. Well, he's an environmentalist, entrepreneur, author, and just amazing activist who's really dedicated to saving the environment, environmental sustainability, and changing the relationship between business and the environment. Now, he's executive director of this Project Drawdown, and he's brought together this coalition, this collaboration, right, of researchers, scientists, policymakers, business leaders, activists, to come together so that to research and bring solutions together to how we can reverse global warming in the next 30 years. That's his mission. And it's like the most comprehensive plan that's ever been proposed to reverse it. The great news is, Paul says that this collaboration, they didn't make or devise new plans. He brought people together, and it already exists. The sources of environmental change already exist. Nothing new needs to be invented. But with the collaboration, there's more, ideas coming together with these great minds sitting together. But one of the biggest number one solution is the girl effect, which of course really excited me. And basically the number one solution was that when women are educated, they can be more effective stewards of the food, the soil, I'm getting goosebumps, the trees, the water, and even as nature's cycles changes. When we educate women and girls that this is how we affect climate change, because women are natural collaborators and sharers, and they're, educate their children, right? And are the homemakers most of the time. And this is how, again, at that grassroots level, not a massive big scale movement, but at grassroots level, you educate women, and then this vibrates out into their family, into their communities, and they are stewards for Mother Nature.
That is so, so beautiful.
Isn't it?
I love that. And I mean, if you look at throughout all of time in history, women have been oppressed, I believe, for this reason, that they don't have power, they don't have education, they don't have upward mobility to create change. And I mean, we're not going to go political on here, but if you notice the young people that are coming into the U.S. political system, it's phenomenal. Oh. These are young women of color and different backgrounds, and they are going for it. They just don't care.
They're amazing. They're amazing. Yeah. These young representatives now in U.S. Congress are change makers and amazing, and I'm very excited to watch them. But this is what I was talking about earlier too, is going back to, like you were saying, we've been oppressed, women have been oppressed for centuries. And the reason is because I believe that it was seen that we had this intuition, right? This special connection, and then we were labeled witches and so on. But I think that's the problem in the world now. We've lost the balance between competition and collaboration. I think there needs to be a balance. I think there can be healthy competition, but we also need that collaboration coming in as well, so that it's not all competitive, which is what we're seeing in our world now, right? Is what's going wrong in the world is the competition. Governments are spending millions, billions trying to get to space first for bragging rights, It's like, can't we just sort out what's going on Earth? In my opinion first, please. I
saw a beautiful article this morning by the Dalai Lama, and he said that when we as a country, say the U.S. isolates and says, America first, or, he said that's really great rhetoric for your base, but it is not even a possibility. The world is interconnected through technology, through our global economy. Like, we can claim that rhetoric if we want to, but it's a myth. We are connected, whether we like it or not. And if we can accept that and move forward with that acceptance that we are a global community, all of humanity, we are basically one because we're so interconnected through the internet and our global economy. That's the way forward. Oh,
absolutely. I totally agree. And, it's like we are a part of nature, right? We're made up of the same elements of nature. We're part of an ecosystem. We're part of this great planet, and right now the divisiveness is not working. And when we're separated, this is why we're suffering, I believe. We all all are so connected that we feel on a very deep level, we feel it when other people are suffering, when animals are struggling. And, when we see these things on the news or we hear about them, it hurts us on a very deep level. And therefore, I don't think we can thrive when others are suffering, because even if we're aware of it or not, our energy is affected when we see others being affected, when and our ecosystems are being affected, obviously, like the bee population dying off, and then our fruit and veg crops are in jeopardy, which is going to affect us in the future, or on an emotional
it's already
level.
Affecting us.
Right. Or on an emotional level, if we see people, starving in famine conditions, sometimes we literally want to shut off those videos or those ads, because we literally can't look at it, because of the depth of our soul. There's a connection, and it really affects us. And this,
I think that's called compassion fatigue, right?
Yeah. And and there is a movement now. We talk about a movement, but there is a realization that we are connected. I think we just have to, in our own way, all in our own little way, right? We talk about these grassroots subgroups, and that they have more impact than these massive movements. But in your own small way, how are we going to collaborate and bring in that change and bring in that awareness that we are connected, and that we need to progress and collaborate together rather than being competitive with each other?
Well, I think this goes right back to Yoga Sutra 215, which you hear me quote in almost every episode. And that is, when you hit rock bottom, you're willing to try something new. And usually until you hit rock bottom, you're not willing to risk a new way of being in the world, with yourself, with your friends, your family, your community, your society, and your global connection. So in some ways, all that's going on in the world is helping us to hit rock bottom, so that we consciously make a decision. This is not what we want as humanity, and we want to take a new direction, which is Yoga Sutra 216.
Right, exactly. And, it's unfortunate that it almost has to hit us in our pocket, hit us in our food produce, hit us in our own environment for us to realize a lot of times, whether it's a sickness, or whether it's with our money, financial, that we have to feel the effects of it. Because I think in particular with the environment, we always think of it, it's out there, the climate change, it's too much. It's beyond us. It's like, how am I going to make a change in this? But again, it comes back to, it starts with small subgroups, and it starts with just doing one little action within your own environment. Maybe it's supporting a local farmer's market, eliminating plastic from your home. How can you make these small changes and then, make that a little movement within your home and within your community?
And within your relationships, I recently read a beautiful story about a young woman from Arkansas that did not believe in climate change. She didn't believe, the interconnectedness of Mother Nature. But then she went to college and was forced to take, a class on ecology or something. And she really understood, like, whoa, this is real. And we probably have something to do with, global warming and climate change. And so she came back to her family, and they just thought she was nuts. They said, "Are you getting brainwashed at college?" And she said, "Well, will you give me 1 hour to explain to you what I learned?" And she sat her, 65-year-old dad down and explained, the atmosphere and how it holds the heat in. And after that hour, he said, "Wow, I had no idea." He said, "I didn't understand what climate change meant. I didn't understand how me driving my car so much, or, eating 3 hamburgers a day could contribute. But now that you explained it to me, someone I love explained it to me, I think I get it." And so I'm going to argue that all of this can't take place. All of this change can't take place through the newspapers and through battling these politicians and those politicians. I think it's a one-on-one heart connection that we ask the people we love, could I have an hour of your time to explain to you my my thoughts, and I'll give you an hour of my, you can tell me for an hour what you think, and let's have this conversation together.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. And that's it, because sometimes when you're listening to the expert, they're using terminology that you're like, what? You don't understand, because they're in their subject. They're used to talking to their co-workers in a certain language. And so that terminology doesn't make any sense to the general public a lot of times. So when it's broken down by somebody who's like, okay, here's the deal, I digested it, and now I'm going to tell you what it's all about, and the way that I know you will understand. Yeah, again, that's, bringing it back down to the small subgroups. And I think it doesn't have to be even educating. I think it could be just through actions. Sometimes actions are so powerful.
And I believe there is no education without a heart connection. So how do you, there are some people that can have a heart connection to a large group of people, but a lot of times it's done one-on-one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, actually. That's very true. And that goes back to that connection again, that even within small groups, that how can you make that connection one-on-one? It's like when you're teaching, you can teach the group, but you still have to give individual attention, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And look at people in the eye.
That's so
through all these years of teaching at the university, I don't talk to the group. I spend 10 seconds making connection and eye contact with this person, and they see me looking at them. And then I walk 3 steps to the right, and I make eye contact and heart connection with the next person in my next sentence, and they see me seeing them.
Amy,
right?
That is amazing that you do that.
That's why it's so tiring, because I do that for 8 hours and I'm exhausted.
No wonder you have No wonder you have such connections in your class. And one of the biggest things, this eye contact, one of the most amazing things I ever did, and I remember I did it in Bali when we're in some yoga or some healing group. We had to look in a person's eyes for, I think it was 5 minutes. Oh my goodness. Was that connection when you look into somebody's eyes and you literally see, you see their soul? That is the most amazing connection. But how often do we look into somebody else's eyes? We avert. It's almost considered rude to stare, right? But I think eye contact, I totally agree with you, is so important.
And let's bring that back to like a yoga therapy session or a session with your Ayurvedic practitioner. They are giving you their full presence. They are looking at your soul. We are looking at your soul. We are making eye contact. We are fully 100% present for that time that we spend together. And regardless of what tools and technologies we end up giving you, what herbs, what food recommendations, that's all great too. But I would argue that connection of total presence for 1 hour, or however long it is a healing tool in and of itself.
100%.
To let someone be seen, let them be heard, let them be felt, and create a safe space for that.
Yeah. We all want to be heard. And that's why I wrote down that note when you were talking, like being heard. Yes, exactly. I think, like you said, it's healing in itself just to have someone listen. And I know when I'm with my clients one-on-one and online, I'm in the, you're in the zone, right? I'm sure you experience this too. You're just totally in their story. And for me, I get off a call and I am just buzzing, because you feel like you're being of service, but also you're connecting. And I love it. Everything else is shut out. Anything else I was concerned about or worried about in my day, it's gone. And I'm just in the zone. It's like when I was, teaching yoga, you're in it for however long that period is. And that's when I think we feel like we're thriving, because we're a single point. I could not agree more. Yeah.
And, I had a client 2 nights ago. I had a really bad day. And then at 4:30, I had this client and I was like, oh, goodness, why did I do this so late in the day? But after being completely present to her for an hour, I had that inner hum, that feeling of connection with myself, connection with her. I felt so good afterwards going into my evening. So I think any time that we are connected, you feel that inner humming. and you know that this is a good thing. Keep going in this direction.
Yeah, and it really, trying to compete on a daily basis is exhausting for our bodies, for our minds, and you can't sustain that.
Completely unsustainable. Completely unsustainable and not fun,
right,
and anxiety provoking and illness causing.
Well, it goes back to your proverb, the African proverb you started with, right? Which is, if you want to go
fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Right. Yeah. So, I'd like to finish up today by asking, and having the listeners think, and maybe if you want to share, Amy, how are you going to collaborate within your own small ecosystem, right? How are you going to maybe set an intention for the new year and beyond about how are you going to collaborate? How are you going to make the change that you want to see in the world? How are you going to bring in those collaborative thoughts and ideas and ways of sharing versus the competitive? Things like, for example, if you have a garden, could you share your garden produce with others? If you have kids that need to be picked up from school, could you take turns with other parents to pick up their kids, giving them an afternoon off, or, teaching children the value of collaboration? It can be little things like that, cooking together and cooking food in batches with your friends so that you all have meals for the week. There could be some great creative ideas to nurture community and collaboration. And I'd love to hear about it. If you wanted to share ideas in the podcast Facebook group, please do that. I'll put a link in the show notes, the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. I know for me, I'm going to share my intentions on collaboration for the new year because it's something I want to do more of. And I'm going to start a beach clean here in my little community, here in the little village I live in. And I'm going to, have it to where it's a environmental thing, but also that we have a connection. So we're going to have a beach clean. I'm going to set up a beach clean and then followed by a picnic so we can all meet each other. So it'll be like a cleanup and connection thing. And I also want to start a small women's circle here, just a supportive women's circle as well. So that's two things that I plan on doing in the new year to just bring in more collaboration into my life. And I'll put it out there so it will really hold me accountable, encourage me to do it. Yeah. Great. How about you, Amy? Is there anything you want to share, how you collaborate now, or is something that you want to bring in?
Yeah. I've been thinking about my yoga business goals, and probably a year ago, I read an amazing book called Contagious. And it basically was saying that if you really want to create change in the world, if you want to share your ideas with others and see if they want to join you, is that you have to loosen up the reins of control and say, look, I've created this thing, but you're welcome to use it in any way that you see fit, and kind of merge your essence with my idea. Wow. And that's how things spread. Yeah. And so my whole business philosophy has shifted in the last 6 months to that. Wow. And it's kind of hard to explain. Maybe that's a whole nother podcast, but the idea is that I'm going to loosen up the controls on what I've created, and I want to connect with you and see if what I've created is useful to you. And if it is, do you want to transform it into something that works for you to use in your business? Wow. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. And it's so exciting to see what you created then, be taken on by somebody else and see how it evolves in their world. I think that's amazing. And it would be very exciting for you to see what happens to that.
Yeah, I worked with some people who wanted to take my optimal state system that I've created and transform it to be useful for psychologists. Wow. And so we had a meeting yesterday, and what they brought to me that they'd created, my mind was blown. And I was like, go for it, ladies. Let's do this. This is amazing.
Isn't that fantastic? But they're coming in with new insights that you probably couldn't have even seen because you're almost too close to it, or that you've been thinking about it in a certain way. And they're coming in with fresh, new ideas. They're looking at it very differently from the way you look at it. That's so exciting and amazing.
And they have different gifts and skill sets than I do. Right. And as I told them, they said, do you want us to promote optimal state? And I said, honestly, no. I said, the logo is on there, fine, but really this is you bringing your essence forward as a psychologist trainer, and that's what's really going to inspire the people that you work with. My vibration may not, but yours will.
Yeah.
So make this about you and what you're bringing to the world.
Wow. I mean, that's wonderful. That's huge.
It's a big shift in my business model, honestly, but it's exploding. I can tell you my business in the last 6 months has exploded because I switched to collaboration versus competition.
Do you find more freedom in it? How does it make you feel?
Well, there's a little fear, I'm not going to lie. But mostly I feel that good things are coming from it, and people are going to hopefully suffer less, and other people are going to be inspired. And I mean, it's exciting. It's scary and exciting. And I posted something on Facebook the other day, like, do you ever think you're maybe too brave and then you get scared? And so many people commented like, oh yeah, every day.
Yeah.
But that's how I feel like my toes are over the edge. I don't know what I've exactly done. I don't know what the consequences will be, but there is an inner hum inside of me. And that's what I'm going to tune into. And as long as that hum is there, I'm just going to keep walking down this road. Yeah,
well, that's it. It's trusting your intuition, that you take the step, and without knowing all the details, letting go of control, and also not knowing what the outcome is, but knowing that it feels right. And that's, I think, the way we should be living our lives. While we can have those wobblies at times where it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Or, you started the snowball effect, right? You started the snowball rolling down the hill, and now it's gaining momentum and it has legs of its own now. But I think it's already successful, and I think it's amazing that you did that, and you will reap rewards, because abundance comes when you're in the zone and you're not being fearful or not being competitive.
And I'll just finish by telling you that there's an amazing book I'm reading by Shonda Rhimes, who's a Black woman that has been the writer of all the best TV shows right now, like Grey's Anatomy and these types of shows. And she has a book called The Year of Yes.
Oh, yes.
Where she did things like we're talking about. And it is an amazing book. Get it and listen to it on Audible, get a copy, read it in the bathtub. She will change your view. She will change your perception. And it's a very personal, vulnerable story about how she went through this process and came out the other side.
That's amazing. Yeah, I heard her interviewed, probably on Oprah. But yes, I definitely need to get the book. I heard her interviewed and was inspired by it. So yeah, that's a good recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So folks out there listening, Amy and I are going to continue collaborating on this podcast together because we love these chats. We get very excited every time we speak. If there's, topics that you would like us to cover, feel free to share some ideas on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And also, I would love to hear your intentions of collaboration going forward. Were you inspired, or are you already collaborating in small ways? And by sharing that with each other, we can give each other ideas. So I'd love to hear that. And Amy, thank you so much. I mean, you always bring such a wealth of information and insights to the show, and I truly appreciate every time we speak.
And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have the inner hum. Every time I'm with you, I feel connected, and I feel like only good things can come from our connection and my self-connection. So it's such an honor. Thank you.
It's a hum. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. And I'm looking forward to hearing your collaboration ideas, or what you're already doing to collaborate, over on the Facebook group. And thank you, Amy. We will connect again soon. Keep humming, my dear. So there you go. Amy left us humming. And I hope you enjoyed that conversation on collaboration versus competition. I think it's very exciting future if we bring in more balance of collaboration and competition. And again, I look forward to hearing your stories over on the Elements of Ayurveda Facebook podcast group. Don't forget about the programs starting, the group online programs I have starting January 18th. That's the Digestive Reset Cleanse and the Reset, Restore, Renew program. I'm going to put the link to that free webinar and the programs in the show notes, or you can also just visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and click on that big orange Start Here button at the top right-hand corner of my homepage, and that will give you access to all the program details, registration, and also that free webinar, which goes into detail on the programs and also compares them for you. So if you're ready to start 2019 taking care of your health and well-being, I would love to support you on that journey. So hopefully we will get to connect with each other soon. In the meantime, take good care of yourself, be well, and ciao for